microphones as you join so that we're not hearing your background conversations. And if you have any questions at any time, I'll be trying to keep an eye on the chat box. We've got some special visitors with us today with some very unique and specific information to share with you. And again, we're glad to have you joining us in your very busy day for the CAO updates for March. So with that, I'm going to move us into the agenda. Here are some of the topics that we're going to be covering. We've got special presenters today from Child Care Services Association. They're going to share with us information about TEACH and the wages program. We also have a special presenter from the NC Caregivers project who's going to be sharing some updates around a new opportunity in that area around nursing and nurse aid. We've got tech updates, some criminal justice updates, Perkins, credential updates, CCP, and of course our regular program updates. So again, packed agenda and very glad to have everyone joining. So I'm going to move us on to the next or the first of the series of updates. I'm very pleased to announce and introduce Ms. Edith Locke, the VP of Professional Development, and Ms. Allison Midler, VP of Compensation and Initiatives. They're both with Child Care Services Association, which is an organization that does wonderful work around early childhood education and support for our students who are in those programs. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Edith.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start by just saying thank you so much for today's opportunity to share with you a bit of information about these two very key workforce initiatives that are administered by Child Care Services Association. Speaking specifically about TEACH, TEACH has really enjoyed a very strong, vibrant partnership with the North Carolina Community College Systems Office for over 30 years. In our practical work or administration of the program, we work quite intimately with each community college's early childhood education associate degree program. So I feel like I really have an intimate knowledge of the community colleges. And once again, just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to have a bit of your time today. So I am actually wanting to use this as a, excuse me? I'm sorry. I always like to use the vision statement as the starting place whenever I talk about TEACH, because it is the child's best interests that are at the heart of all that we do. Anyone who's ever heard me speak knows I don't read line by line of the slides. I tend to summarize. But if you have a clarifying question about anything that's presented on the slide, feel free to put it in the chat box, or you can certainly email me after today's conversation. But again, without restating the obvious, children actually do better when they are exposed to a highly qualified early education provider or teacher. And what does it mean to say well qualified? Well, it's beyond just education. We also have to look at the type of compensation that that teacher actually is able to experience. So, you know, we've talked about TEACH in a variety of ways over the years. And what I'd like to just point out here, if you don't remember anything else about what I talk about this afternoon, is that the opportunity to participate on TEACH actually allows participants to experience a debt-free college education. They'll receive a package of comprehensive supports by virtue of their participation. And we actually see TEACH as a clear mechanism for leveling the playing field. Everyone has equal opportunity, and we just find that to be absolutely vital. And it's because of this universality of scholarship availability that over the course of our 30-year history, we have actually seen more than 35,000 early educators across the state take advantage of a TEACH scholarship. So beyond that, one of the proudest accomplishments that I feel TEACH has managed to demonstrate is this notion of the partnership principle, where we have really brought forth of people from both sides of the aisle, for one, and we also engage employers in a way that allows them to invest in the education and compensation of their staff. But more also of great significance is that year after year, the scholarship program has demonstrated measurable results. We're very, very outcome focused, and we leverage available research to kind of determine the directions in which we move. So why would the state invest in Teach? Well, for one, it's kind of like I like to consider an off-the-shelf package, if you will. But North Carolina, like many states across the country, is requiring credentials. We started that really formally and more clearly with the adaptation of the QRIS system. But anyone who knows about the early education system is well aware that Head Start actually took the lead on this many years ago when it started requiring its lead teachers to have bachelor's degrees. So you add to that the pre-K initiative that again requires a bachelor's degree with licensure. So the Teach package, if you will, is a win-win for everyone because it provides access. It also addresses issues of affordability, and also in the end is able to demonstrate compensation gains. Again, teachers need educated, effective teachers. And that is one point that I think we continue to debate today, that whole definition of effective. You still have a good bit of folks who vote along the lines of experience, yet that doesn't bear itself out in the same way as education does when you look at the research. And moving forward, you look at that bottom bullet, COVID-19 has really illustrated the needs of the early education workforce. And while the workforce was deemed essential, in some ways, we didn't quite see that play out in other ways as we did other teachers throughout the public school system. But again, the early education workforce was absolutely vital to helping families get back to work, because childcare, as we all know on this call, is a necessity. So when you look at this next slide, and this is when I really miss being able to talk face to face, because I love to pitch this question to a live active audience. But when you look at this slide, what I hope jumps out at you is that the traits under each column are almost identical. They mirror each other. So the EC workforce comprised largely of women who work full-time, head up families, but for many years were often without degrees. Now, we've seen some substantial progress around degree attainment, but of course, it's not 100%, nor do I think it will be. But then you look at the last two bullets. They kind of go hand in hand. Very few workplace benefits. And as a result of all of those kind of factors, a lot of turnover exists. It's very prevalent. So you cross over to the college non-completer and you see the similarities. You know, they tend to have dependent children, first generation college student, as a result can only attend part-time, single parent, and oftentimes they're still financially dependent on their own parents or on extended family. And certainly we saw all of this bear itself out because of COVID. College or the pursuit of college education has taken a backseat because the pandemic either forced individuals out of the field or certainly put them in survival mode, making education less of a priority, and for some, even more distant in terms of being reachable. So when we talk Teach, in terms of it being comprehensive, this is really what we're talking about when we talk about the package of supports. You'll see 5 C's, comprehensive scholarship that covers, for the most part, 90 to 95% of tuition costs, educational expenses. And to put it into context, North Carolina, unlike many other states, has the real fortune of having a robust higher ed system and a well-coordinated community college system. So our costs, because of that, are relatively low. You know, I look at North Carolina's per credit hour cost and compare it to other states, like in Florida, Vermont, New Hampshire, and we are a really good deal. We offer a really good deal in this state. And yet, as good as that deal may be in terms of affordability, our early educators are challenged to pay all of the out-of-cost expenses associated with that due to their low earnings. But college education, the next component, teach would not be teach if it supported what I call non-credit bearing opportunities. We only support credit bearing coursework that's offered through our community college system or at selected universities. And then compensation is absolutely key to sustaining our participants along their educational journey. The incremental compensation that they receive keeps them motivated, keeps them moving forward. And because of that, we see a high number of graduates year after year. And again, put it in context. You know, these participants are working full-time, making low wages, having children, and yet they persevere to go on and earn an associate degree. The counselor is vital to the participant's experience and oftentimes is the lifeline for the participant, for the employer, and oftentimes serves as the intermediary between the participant and their respective community college. And then the last component is that of commitment. I think, and I've said this year after year throughout my tenure with this program, I could probably let go of some of the other components, but it's the commitment component that is most rewarding for me personally. As you see participants year after year agree to give back by way of service to their employer and to teach who's acting on behalf of the state, they're giving back by way of service in exchange for the investment that was made into them. So when you look at a comprehensive scholarship, well, let's think about what that really does include. You know, TEACH is very different than a Pell Grant. And it's because we build in those special needs that we know working students need. You know, years ago when I first came to TEACH, we characterized our participants as non-traditional students. And yet you fast forward 30 years later, and really, there is no such thing as a non-traditional student anymore. They've become much more the majority than they were many, many years ago. So our scholarships are designed to include all of those provisions that you see on this slide. A percentage is provided for tuition, fees, and books, with TEACH paying the lion's share. A travel, or what I really think of as being an access stipend, is provided, and so is paid release time. And that last bullet, paid release time, is probably the most revolutionary of them all, because it is still challenging for folks who work in this industry to buy into this particular perk, meaning that a person will get paid full-time salary, but be given time off in order to study, attend class, or manage their own personal needs. Other industries or careers or fields have oftentimes offered this as a benefit to staff, but this is still fairly radical for our industry. When I first came to TEACH, you know, a long, long time ago, I think we only had maybe 2 of these scholarships available. But one of the kind of foundational principles of TEACH is that we're responsive to the needs of the workforce and the system, higher ed system. So over time, we've added a variety of scholarships that go beyond the associate degree scholarship or the introductory credential scholarship. Our most recently added scholarship is the Bachelor's Plus. I won't go into detail about it, but we're most excited about that addition because it really does broaden the type of scholarship support that can be extended to specialists who are supporting these early educators. So this is why when you chart it out, this is how an associate degree scholarship looks for a teacher. You'll see all the various components lifted out. And it is all these components in combination that really do support the teacher in a very meaningful way. But it's also why Teach has had the longevity in our state that it has experienced. So I guess it's been about 4 or 5 years ago. We, like we tend to do at Child Care Services, really thought about the challenges and roadblocks that still existed for the early education workforce. And quite frankly, one of the major roadblocks that prevented teachers from pursuing education was their employer. And what we heard year after year was that employers just either were unwilling or unable to make a financial investment in their teachers' education. And then you throw in compensation, and really they just were not having any of it. And so we took a step back and we said, okay, what can we do that provides even more flexibility and improves accessibility to education? And out of those internal discussions, evolved the Associate and Bachelor's Degree Working Scholars program. There is no employer investment with this particular scholarship. It's offered at the associate and bachelor degree levels. Now, the caveat, though, is because the employers are not investing in their education or providing compensation, they then cannot use any kind of investment to leverage retention. But the beauty of this is our participants on this particular model were just so excited to have a chance at education. They're remaining with their employer despite the lack of internal investment. Eligibility for Teach is really, really easy to meet. It does vary a bit by role and by scholarship model. But for the most part, and again, some context here, comprehensive scholarships require that applicants meet the eligibility that's listed below. Now, I keep stressing comprehensive scholarships, but we do also offer a variety of capped scholarships that were more commonly known as stipends. And the previously shown working scholars models are an example of what a capped scholarship would look like. And this is horribly appearing on the screen, but I certainly can share this data with you after today's call. But I wanted you to get a glimpse of about what our participation looked like in 2020. We served over 2,000 participants, meaning they actively used their Teach scholarship, but we serviced an additional 400 or 500, meaning they received counseling services, lots and lots of TA, but for whatever reason, the applicants just were not ready to take the final steps needed to activate their scholarship or complete course enrollment registration. We have had much higher participation numbers in previous years. Absolutely, QRAS was a real, it influenced participation many years ago. In a couple of years, we had more than 5,000 participants in consecutive years. So that is the real quick overview of the Teach Early Childhood North Carolina Scholarship Program. It is really condensed. So please, if you're interested in learning more or hearing more, take advantage of my email address or the phone number that's posted there on this last slide. I could talk about Teach forever and for hours, but I'm most appreciative of this bit of time that I've been offered today.
Thank you, Edith. I will transition now to Allison.
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm here to talk about the Child Care Wages Program and Infant Toddler Educator Awards, and I really appreciate being here. Thank you. These are both compensation opportunities for the early care and education workforce. Both wages and awards are evidence-informed, education-based salary supplement programs. We offer annual financial awards, again, tied to an individual's level of education, and we issue those in 2 installments, each after the individual completes 6 months in the same child care program. And the more education they get, that means more money for them through their supplements. And of course, the goal is to provide this increased compensation and as a result, increase education and retention in the workforce. These programs are designed very similarly, but they are quite different as well. So I want to walk through some of those differences. Wages is funded by local Smart Start partnerships that choose to participate in the Division of Child Development and Early Education. We currently have 58 counties whose partnerships have elected to invest money in wages. Awards is funded entirely by DCDEE, so it is available in all 100 counties. For wages, they would need to work with children birth to age 5 and have a level of education that's on the wages scale, and that ranges from a few credit hours of early childhood coursework all the way to graduate degrees. For awards, of course, they need to work with children birth through age 2, and they need to have at least the associate's degree in early childhood education, its equivalent or higher on the wages, on the award scale. Both programs do have income caps, which means that the participants need to earn at or below that cap in order to remain eligible. For wages, that cap is chosen by the funding partnership out of those 3 options you see there, and the cap is $19 for awards. In wages, someone could work at least 10 hours per week, and they need to work in a licensed child care program center or a home. If they're working fewer than 35 hours a week, their award's going to be prorated to reflect their part-time schedule. But I do want to point out that partnerships could choose to restrict their funding based on the star rating of the center. For awards, they need to work at least 35 hours a week, so it's full-time infant toddler educators working in sites with at least 3 stars. So you can see that in wages, it's going to look a little or a lot different from county to county because we do have some county options, and awards, it is consistent across the state because it is a statewide funder. I know that everyone here is certainly familiar with why it's important to have educated and stable teachers, and our workforce data tells us we really need to continue to focus on the issues of compensation, education, and retention. This is 2019 workforce data, so it's pre-COVID, but at that time we had a 21% teacher turnover rate, and the teaching staff was earning about $12 per hour. And it's not hard to understand why teachers feel like they do need to leave the field when they're only earning $12 per hour, especially when you look at the living wage calculator and see that the amount that would be needed for one North Carolina adult with 1 child to meet just basic fundamental needs is over $30 an hour. So that's more than twice what they're earning in early childhood. So clearly some sort of compensation support is necessary to rebuild and support the early childhood pipeline. And the Leandro report does identify both wages and awards as strategies to do just that. Both of these programs do improve the quality of care for children and promote their healthy development and early learning by retaining educated teachers and enhancing their well-being. And we know how critical that is because their well-being impacts the well-being of the children in their care. I hope you'll take just a second to read these quotes from participants, and there are many, many more of these in our annual reports that we have posted online. But I share these as an indication that the participants really do say that these programs help encourage them to stay in the field, and particularly in their child care programs. They do encourage them to get additional education, and perhaps equally important, it makes it possible for them to view early childhood as a viable career path because there really are these compensation opportunities. And I'll just close by sharing this illustration about all of the types of results that are possible as a result of having these compensation opportunities, ranging from results for children to parents to the teachers, of course, and the centers. And like Edith, I certainly welcome any questions to my email address, or you can give me a call. And thank you for this opportunity today.
Thank you so much, Allison, and thank you again, Edith. I hope that folks on this call, we will be sharing out the PowerPoint slides and hopefully, fingers crossed, the recording as well. And just want to make sure that you all know these things are out there for our early childhood education students to support their studies as well as compensation once they're in the workforce. So we appreciate you both for being with us today. And with that, we're going to transition to another guest speaker. Very excited to welcome back to the community college family, Miss Renee Batts. Many of you know Renee from when she worked at the system office or perhaps her time at one of our colleges. So Renee, I'm going to unmute you. I think I've got you muted on your phone line. Let me try that now. Renee, can you hear us? And can you might have to unmute yourself. It's not giving me the option to unmute you. And I am also looking at my cell phone now to see if Renee can hear. She might have to call back in. Let's see.
One trick might be to press *6 on your keypad if it's still not giving you.
Yes, it's not giving me that option. Renee, she said she can hear us. Renee, can you press *6 on your phone and see if that will unmute your line? Thank you, Nate. See if that'll work. Oh, let me get that. Renee, we cannot hear you. Can you try *6 to unmute your phone? Okay, she's pressed it. Renee, try hanging up and calling back in and we'll readmit you to the meeting. We'll try that. And while we're waiting for Renee to connect to audio, I just want to recognize Dr. Gold has joined the meeting. Good afternoon, Dr. Gold.
Good afternoon, everybody. It sounds like Renee may have made it back.
I think she was exiting and hopefully going to join back in. I think it was announcing her exiting.
Well, it's good to be on with everybody this afternoon. Hope you are all doing well.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. While we're waiting for Renee to jump back in, do you have anything you'd like to share with them, with our group?
Well, there's a lot going on, and so I won't dive into everything that's going on. I will note the President's COVID Committee met this morning. And one question that came up with that group that might be of interest to this group, we did receive new guidance from DHHS dated March 19th, I believe, in terms of safety and social distancing. I know there's been a lot of conversations about public schools reducing the 6 feet distance down to 3 feet, and that updated guidance maintains the 6 feet for higher education. So just wanted to, that was one of the questions that came up on their call and thought that might be of interest to this group as well.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. We appreciate that update. That's always good to get those COVID updates. Renee,
it'd be nice when we don't have to have COVID updates anymore.
We won't know how to act.
We will not.
Renee,
Lisa, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're glad to have you. Sorry about that technical glitch.
No, I apologize. I appreciate so much the opportunity to be with all of you today. As Lisa was saying, I wanted to share with you a new initiative, NC Caregivers Program. When it comes to NC Caregivers, this is something that is just getting started. Our timeline began March 1. We signed all of our contracts with the Department of Health and Human Services. And with the Caregivers Program, how this came about is several years ago, the North Carolina Healthcare Facilities Association established Future Care of North Carolina. Future Care is a not-for-profit 501c3 organization that is focused on fostering and promoting innovations to improve the quality of care and residential living in our North Carolina skilled nursing facilities, which there are approximately 423 in our state. Future Care is being concerned about the shortage of direct care workers in our state, and over the last 6 years, we have seen a decline by nearly 20,000 nursing aides in long-term care. Also, as several other people have mentioned, COVID-19 has also had an impact on long-term care, and that's made the staffing shortage worse during this pandemic. The North Carolina Healthcare Facilities Association conducted a member survey and found that facilities had budgeted openings for 3,800 nurse aides, but did not have qualified applicants to fill those positions. They had the money available, but no applicants. So what Future Care NC did was submit a grant application to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to establish the NC Caregivers Program using civil penalty money. CMS awarded Future Care approximately $2.5 million to address this shortage of direct care workers in nursing homes. It's a 3-year grant. Our timeline is from March 1 of 2021, and it goes through February 28, 2024. The 3-year grant is to establish the Caregivers Program, which is focusing on education and marketing that will promote the nurse aide profession. When it comes to caregivers, we'll be focusing on recruitment and retention of the nurse aides in skilled nursing facilities. The recruitment effort will be to conduct a comprehensive media campaign and create a detailed website to inform potential participants about the career for caring for older adults in long-term care. The retention aspect is to look at retention initially, if you want to say short-term retention, because the nursing homes are looking at how to incentivize and award nurse aides who stay with them, and then long-term retention. And with long-term retention, we're looking at doing 3 annual employee surveys to look at employee engagement and satisfaction over the next 3 years, as well as providing webinars to look at culture change within long-term care, with such things as coaching styles of leadership, action planning, challenging the process, making changes stick, strength-based leadership, empowering others to act. So that's just a few. So we're looking at our overall goal over the next 3 years is to add at least 4,000 new nurse aides to work in the skilled nursing facilities. During this first quarter, March, April, and May, we're reaching out to all the skilled nursing facilities, which there's, again, approximately 420 plus within the state, the community colleges, and proprietary schools to introduce and inform you of the program, and also to seek your participation in this initiative. During the first quarter, we'll be developing the NC Caregivers logo, a website, a Facebook page, and a media campaign. And with the website, we're looking at being able to have potential students log on to our website, seeing what community colleges, proprietary schools are participating in the initiative, as well as seeing what skilled nursing facilities are participating in the initiative. We'll begin developing an automated online tracking system using the Qualtrics survey software so that we can track them from when they enroll in the community college or proprietary school, the completion of their studies, when they take their test through Pearson VUE, and then their employment with a skilled facility. When they stay with that skilled facility for 6 months, they will be receiving a retention bonus of $500. Also, once they are hired at a facility during the first month of their employment, if they paid for their tuition at the community college or proprietary school out of pocket, in other words, they do not receive Golden Leaf Scholarship, Pell Grant, or any type of funding, the cost of the tuition for the community college or the proprietary school will be reimbursed to the student. During the second quarter, June, July, and August, we will have our online tracking operational. So that's when we're looking at potentially having students or participants that would be enrolled in community colleges and proprietary schools and being involved in our program. To participate, students must be at least 18 years of age to register for the program. For the community colleges and proprietary schools that are interested in participating in the NC Caregivers program, we'll be asking them to do the following: assist students as needed with program enrollment, provide class schedules to Future Care NC so we can post them on our website, to input requested student information on the NC Caregivers participant on a secure online tracking system, which will help us track them and their progress, and to complete an online survey at the conclusion of the NC Caregivers program. If you would like additional information, which I'm hoping that you will, or would like to talk or with me, my contact information is below. Please feel free to reach out to me either by email or by phone. I'd love to have the opportunity to talk to each one of you or your nurse aid coordinators at each one of the community colleges to tell you more about the program and keep you posted on its progress.
Thank you so much, Renee, for sharing this information. We're always glad to have you back with our group, and you provided a flyer as well, so when we send these PowerPoint slides out, I'll send that document out too. All right, thank you again. We're going to keep moving right along, being mindful of your time, and we've got TAC updates from Dr. Kelly.
All right, thank you, Dr. Eads, and welcome everybody this afternoon. Thank you for being here, and I will move quickly through just a couple of updates. The Transfer Advisory Committee, for those of you that might be new to your role as a Chief Academic Officer, is a joint committee with the UNC system that has a variety of responsibilities to manage the Comprehensive Articulation Agreement. The members from the community college that serve on that committee, and Lisa, if I mess up here, you might have to help me out, but is Jonathan Loss from Catawba Valley, Gene Shelby from Rowan Cabarrus, and then Levy Brown from Van Scramble, and then Barry Priest from Bladen Community College. So those are your representatives on the Transfer Advisory Committee. I don't think I missed anyone, and I think I got their schools correctly. One of the things that they do as a responsibility in partnership with their UNC counterparts is we evaluate the UNC institutions through a site visit program. There is some self-report work that the UNC institutions have to do. There's also a program analysis of their transfer advisory programs. There's interviews with community college transfer students at each of those institutions, and a variety of work groups that they facilitate. And then those are reported out in the annual report to the General Assembly. I go through all of that this afternoon just to say that the schedule for the 2021, there's a rotation of the 16 universities, but the schedule for the 2021 site visits include the following UNC institutions. I thought you might want to be aware of maybe an institution that's in your service area or one of the institutions that you send a lot of transfer students to, just so you'll know that they're being evaluated this year. The first one is the NC UNC Asheville, UNC Chapel Hill, Western Carolina University. All of those will be visited this spring. And then this coming fall, Fayetteville State University, UNC Pembroke, and UNCW Wilmington. So those are the institutions that will be visited over the next calendar year. Just wanted to let you guys know that that was going on. The other thing that I want to announce to everybody is you may have seen a numbered memo. It's numbered memo. Whoops, I lost the number. Hold on, excuse me. Is C21-012, which had some transfer advisory action items. And there is an error on that memo. And so I wanted to make sure we made everybody aware that memo. That error came from an error in the minutes, it came from an error in the survey. It was just compounded in several different documentations. And so we had to go back and revisit the entire thing. So the memo currently reads that the following courses are added to the transfer course with pre-major elective classification. And those courses listed are CJC 112, CJC 212, CSC 249, and CSC 251. The CJC 112, the very first course listed, is in error and is not correct. So we will be sending out a correction, a number of memo correction in the very near future to make sure that everybody has that documented. And I think we've already made that correction in the combined course library. Is that correct, Lisa?
I think we were waiting for the memo to be corrected, so it won't take us just a second to make that correction once we have it.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. And so we are looking at getting that corrected number memo out as soon as possible. But this was a great opportunity to go ahead and get the word out that the CJC 112 on the numbered memo 012 is incorrect, and please disregard that. We'll have a correction coming out in the very near future. So that's all I have for TAC updates, unless we have any questions.
Thank you, JW.
Yeah, no problem.
Keep moving along. We're getting tight on time. We've got some updates coming from Ms. Tracy McPherson about some new opportunities with the Criminal Justice Fellows Program. Tracy, are you on the call? And you may be muted.
I'm sorry about that. I unmuted and then remuted. This is Tracy McPherson. I work at the system office as part of the public safety team, but in that capacity, I also sit in a seat that the system president has on the Criminal Justice Education and Training Standards Commission, as well as the Sheriff's Education and Training Standards Commission. And those commissions are staffed by the Department of Justice, which is also known as the Attorney General's Office. I mention that because this Criminal Justice Fellows Program is an initiative of the Attorney General's Office. And really, when I was listening to the presentations on the TEACH program, it made me think this is really a fledgling TEACH program, because all of the information that was given about the reason for the program and the vision for the program is really parallel. In the law enforcement and broader criminal justice community, there is a desire to recruit and retain employees that match the needs of the job, and even more specifically in today's environment with a renewed focus on law enforcement related to community engagement and having the right types of people in these positions. This is also part of this initiative of recruiting and retaining the appropriate personnel for criminal justice. So there is a North Carolina Criminal Justice Fellows Program. It is modeled, it is a forgivable loan program. It is specific to a 2-year degree. It is not a bachelor's degree. And that's why it's even more important that we partner as a community college system, because we are the delivery mechanism for this educational opportunity for our students and for our communities. So I'll go down these bullet points on the slide. It is for folks seeking an associate's degree. It can be criminal justice technology or another approved field. For the most part, so far it has been criminal justice technology, but it could be public safety administration, and I'm sure other things would be considered if the student were to propose something. It is up to $3,152 each year for up to 2 years. And it is a financial aid program at the college level. The funds are transferred from the Department of Justice over to the college where the student is enrolled, and it is administered as financial aid. We do have information on that if necessary. The applicants for the fellows must reside in and subsequently work for 4 years in an eligible job in one of the eligible counties. Now, this is a little bit confusing and also just a little bit frustrating because the Attorney General's proposal originally to the legislature was that students could be from any county and participate in this. At the point at which it became a law and was put into the budget, it was restricted to a certain number of counties. It's in the low 60s is the number of counties. In the current budget, it has been expanded to 80 counties, but since the budget has not been approved, it has not been expanded yet. We do have information on those eligible counties. If you need help finding that, just email me and I can give you that information. The 4 years is what you work in order to have your loan forgiven. So after you have worked those 4 years, then you do not owe the money back to the state. The eligible jobs are jobs that require certifications. And these are certifications that should be familiar to your colleges because most of them are certifications that the college teaches, particularly on the continuing ed side of the house. And they are all certifications that are administered or mandated by the CJ Commission and the Sheriff's Commission. So that would be your local and state police. It would be your county sheriff's deputies, state correctional officers, state juvenile justice officers, and detention officers, and also telecommunicators that work for law enforcement. I have that list as well. It's also on the webpage. The folks that are in this program would need to reside in one of the eligible counties and then work in one of the eligible counties. The community college can be any of the 58 community colleges. It's about the students' residence and then where they go to work as far as the eligible counties. You do need to be a full-time student to finish the program within 2 years. The exception to that is if you come to the table with credits. We have Career and College Promise students, for example, or students that have taken classes previously. You may certainly be a part-time student and receive a waiver for that full-time capacity as long as you graduate within 2 years. Is there one more slide, Lisa?
I think there's this and the map.
That's it. Okay, thank you. The fellows must be high school graduates. That has been interpreted sometimes that they need to be high school students currently, that your high school seniors would be the people applying. Absolutely, that is a market, but that is not the only market. And I particularly wanted to raise this today with this group because I think there are a couple of markets that we're not tapping. One of those markets is people that are already in your criminal justice technology programs. They may not have made a commitment yet in their mind as to the type of job. A lot of times your criminal justice student has not made a decision to go to work specifically into law enforcement or detention and that sort of thing. If they were interested in that, they could certainly apply for this fellowship to pay for the remainder of their program. They would just then be under the requirements of this program. But if they are already a student at your college in an associate's degree program, they are not precluded from applying. And I would argue they might be an ideal student because I have a personal concern being on this committee with the state for this program that sometimes your younger students that have not been to a community college yet, they may struggle, especially in a COVID environment, to be completely successful in their courses. And you are in a forgivable loan situation. So if you aren't successful and don't complete in time, sometimes that could be problematic as far as having to pay the money back. And if you have students that have already proven that they can be successful students and they have that under their belt, I think that increases their likelihood of finishing the program. That's not to dissuade the younger students, but be a little more broad-minded. The other one is if you have students that are taking classes in your continuing ed programs and they're currently already working as law enforcement officers, detention officers, or others, they may also apply because you don't have to be a new employee to the field. This is also to help grow their own. And so they're trying to retain people in the field and also increase the educational level of those in the field. We have only had 2 graduates of this program so far because it's very new, but those 2 graduates were already full-time working law enforcement officers. Up to 100 fellows may be selected each year, contingent upon, you'll go back one slide, contingent upon the legislative funding. This is important because the funding is tied to the budget. And as you know, right now the current budget's not approved. That's where the increasing to the 80 counties would be part of this. And so it is a contingent upon availability of funding. They are taking applications right now. The deadline is May 31st. All of this information is on the website. All right, then the next one is fine. Thank you, Lisa, very much. This is a list of the current counties that are eligible. And then that's my contact information. We do also have a dedicated email address, cjfellows@nccommunitycolleges.edu. Department of Justice also has a staff, is the one that manages the program, and they certainly have a staff person and they have an email address as well. But a lot of times the questions are community college specific. So please feel free to reach out through cjfellows@ncommunitycolleges.edu, and also go to the website for, there's a brochure, there's the application and the other information. But I'm happy to assist in any way. And we thank you for trying to connect the dots and helping your local criminal justice employers recruit and retain and promote their own, while at the same time having community college graduates in the associate degree. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. We appreciate you sharing that information. I'm going to move right along to our Perkins update with Dr. Bob Witchker. Dr. Bob?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, great. Hey, thank you very much. I think the big thing I want to talk about today is our annual meeting that's coming up on April the 13th. We want to thank you for your ongoing support of Perkins, and we appreciate what the insights you provide to us. So on behalf of our staff, Patty, Mary, Doris, Chris, and Michelle, and Tony, we welcome you to attend this meeting. To give you a little idea of what we're going to cover, first of all, we're not going to have the hot dogs or Coca-Colas or chicken fingers like you usually got in Greensboro before you came to our meeting. You'll have to get those on your own. But we're going to review the handbook. We've updated our handbook and our operating procedures for 21-22. We're going to give you some insights on the comprehensive local needs assessment. It really is going to be the anchor of this year's monitoring as we go out and monitor our colleges. We will be discussing allocations for 21-22. Over $10 million will be going out to our colleges again this year. Did you know that this year we had colleges hire 115 staff and faculty with Perkins money, and they purchased over $5 million in equipment to enhance current technical education, and conducted over 58 comprehensive local needs assessments to close the gap and assist our colleges in writing their local plans. And this included stuff like faculty professional development, enhancing pathways, career counseling, coaching, and tutoring. We'll be talking about that, and we're going to highlight the top 25 strategies that were presented at our mid-year reviews, maybe giving you some ideas on how you write your plan for next year. In addition, we're going to discuss the reserve fund. Now, this is something a little bit different this year. As you know, in the past years, we took the first item under the reserve fund to address rural areas and develop career pathways in rural areas. This year, we're going to address gaps in subpopulation participation. Really, what that means in a way is we looked at the comprehensive local needs assessments that you did and our state comprehensive local needs assessment, and notice the data for American Indians, Hispanic, and African American students who are at high risk. And they're individuals that are in our career pathways that may be falling behind in technical attainment. So we're currently now discussing a competitive bid process, an RFP we'll put out to improve and enhance participation and persistence in CTE programs of study. We believe that through the RFP process, you will be able to propose to us ideas and strategies to improve student outcomes. You know, we saw this before in Catalyzing Career Pathways. It was one of the ideas in Tech Prep before where you wrote a proposal. So we're going to be coming up with a short RFP and then be taking maybe $1 million or so and distributing it to colleges to help us figure out how we address persistence and participation in CTE programs. This will also help our accountability effort that we have for the whole state. You know, we're doing pretty good. You guys are really doing a great job in that, but we need to improve in a few areas. As you know, in all federal grants, the money comes from the feds to the state to the local entities. New to Perkins 5 is that we're asking you to listen to and engage with your stakeholders. And you guys did a great job in writing your comprehensive needs assessment, and you'll be doing that again this year. You won't have to redo the comprehensive needs assessment, but your local plans will reflect the work that you did in your communities as we really push the certificates, diplomas, and the degrees. Again, we appreciate your support and interest in Perkins 5 and implementing many innovative strategies. God, we saw some really good ideas in the mid-year reviews this year. And we really appreciate your efforts to use these funds to improve student success and assist our students in earning those post-secondary credentials. I guess I'll conclude with, our motto of Perkins 5 is strengthening America's workforce. And we thank you for your help in doing this. Please call or email if you have any questions or suggestions. One of the things we miss is going out and visiting our colleges and seeing how they're implementing these as we share ideas to help us all raise the level of participation in student attainment in our state. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. We appreciate it. We're going to move right along to Mr. Nate Humphrey. Nate's got some really interesting updates to share with us as well about some workforce credentials.
Get myself off beat there. Thanks for that, Lisa. Just a couple of very quick updates I just want to draw your attention to. The first is related to the NC workforce credentials work that's been underway really for the past year and a half. It doesn't seem like it's been that long when you think about it, but somehow the clock has run on us for a bit. And we can actually zoom through to the next slide. So one of the things that's important, I just want to make sure that folks understand, and I'm sorry that it got chopped up a bit. What is circled or supposed to be circled for you on that screen is the fact that 9.1% of projected growth in North Carolina occupations are in the post-secondary credential non-degree space. And for comparison, the associate's degree growth rate is at 10.5. So 9.1 versus 10.5, those two are really the sweet spots of where our colleges are able to add value for individuals in our state. And so on the next slide, what you'll see is how NC workforce credentials plays a role in our work towards closing the gap in the attainment goal here in North Carolina. I'm sure that you recall that we have an attainment goal set at 2 million individuals in that working age population holding a post-secondary credential. And certainly as a part of that, we've been trying to work towards a definition or a list of those credentials in that post-secondary space that would make sense to be counted towards that attainment goal. So on that next slide, what exactly do we mean by an NC workforce credential? Hopefully this isn't the first time you're hearing about this, but just in case, this is really looking at what are those state regulated or industry recognized credentials. Those could be certainly locally defined or apprenticeship credentials that have both demand as well as a family sustaining wage associated with those. So obviously the skill being conveyed based on the type of credential there, and then the demand and wage portions being reflected based on labor market data, as well as looking at the earner outcomes for individuals in these various career credentials. So with that, North Carolina has essentially set a set of thresholds to help us in determining what falls into those categories. And so working with our Department of Commerce and leveraging their work around STAR jobs in North Carolina, we're able to narrow this list down to essentially 4 buckets. What are those credentials that are essential for certain jobs in North Carolina that are likely not to be sufficient to get you a job on their own? Good example of that might be an OSHA credential or a forklift operator type credential, something like that, right? The next would be, what are those, those would be foundational rather. So essential, career, and advanced are the ones that are going to be able to either meet that wage threshold and opening threshold, or at least one or the other. And really that true sweet spot are those career credentials that on their own can get an individual quickly into the workforce, but also make sure that we're thinking forward about what are their future opportunities in that career pathway, but also that they're going to be able to put food on the table and a roof over their head at the end of the day as well. So you recently got an email from me this morning, actually, requesting first that some individuals on your campus provide us some input as training providers education and training providers in this space. We want to know, what do you know about your local labor market and about these credentials specifically? And then we followed that up with a request that if you're willing and able, that you share the employer version of that survey out to the various folks on your advisory boards or your employer partners locally. And then that way we can gather essentially some final validation on the 135 credentials that fit these definitions in North Carolina. You know, the immediate use here is that we see this as twofold. Being able to assist students in knowing what are those state regulated or industry recognized credentials that have true labor market value in North Carolina, helping them make sense of the 900,000 plus credentials that are out there that are not called a degree, and really helping us as program folks be able to discern which programs we should be investing in or we should be thinking about whenever we're looking at our program mixes on our campuses. So just again, drawing your attention to those two emails that you received this morning and asking for your assistance in verifying that work. There's a timeline here for you of the work that we've been doing over the last 18 months. And we're at that phase now where we think that that initial list is almost ready for prime time. And we're just asking for your input in that really quick survey. Honestly, I know we survey a lot, but 10 minutes could really go a long way in us making sure that we have captured what we needed to for this work. The last thing I just wanted to say is that our Destiny 1 project remains on track. We're extremely excited. Our 3 pilot colleges are on track to receive their first installation of the product for initial testing at the end of April. And that puts us still on the pathway of having our initial implementations of that at colleges by the fall, by sometime around mid-fall term. Long-range planning for that has it that all 58 colleges will have Destiny 1 as a product that they are using in their workforce and short-term workforce training areas by the end of spring of next year's term. Hopefully a lot sooner than that, but just trying to keep it realistic for you. So those are 2 updates for you of some exciting things that are going on over in the short-term side of the house.
Thank you, Nate. We appreciate that. And I just want to acknowledge it is a couple minutes after 3. I only have a couple more updates to share, so I understand if those need to jump off for your next meeting. We are recording this call, but I will just go ahead and share with you the Career and College Promise updates that we have. Just giving you a reminder here for those cooperative innovative high schools who are up for their 5-year renewal. Your program should have received some information from your local LEA. And that deadline for the LEA to submit that paperwork with your signature is March the 31st. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Also want to give you a save the date for our first ever virtual CCP Research Conference. We have those dates slotted for September 23rd and 24th. Again, it will be online. We'll be sending you some information with the registration and proposal submission links. We've just got that website up and going today, I believe. So very excited about that. And again, this is a national conference and it's the first ever that North Carolina has hosted. So very excited about that opportunity for your campuses as well as your high school partners. Also, just want to make sure to remind folks we are working on the Workforce Continuing Education CCP pathway application to move all that to a new electronic process. That pilot is underway and going smoothly. We will be having some training dates very soon. And then pathway work, we are working and meeting with CORD to talk about some regional pathway seminars in early May for our state. So those save the dates will probably be in the next Chief Academic Officer call in April. And then I've got a couple more just reminders from Dr. Guido here. Just want to remind campuses, if you are submitting programs of study for summer, that deadline was March 20th. So if you are still looking at some other programs in colleague for entry and approval for summer, get those to us as quick as you can. And then the deadline for fall submissions for programs of study is June 15th. And we certainly appreciate you working hard to get your fall programs together. And then credit for prior learning, just want to let folks know, State Board did approve that new section of code last Friday. We are working on an operating procedure chapter for that, and we are planning some professional development and really some marketing strategies. So we're working on that. So you'll be hearing a lot more from our office on that. And then we are in the year of coaching. So we do want the rollout for this new policy to go smoothly, and that will include some transcript guidance and some other standardizations for the policy. And we want to go ahead and recognize and remind folks, colleges can develop your local policies at any time. So if you have questions about credit for prior learning, please reach out and let one of us know. And then the rest of this PowerPoint is just resource slides for you. So I'll send out the slides today. We'll hopefully get that recording link out to you as well. You've heard from a lot of folks, both internal and external. We appreciate everybody for sharing their updates, and I will stay on the line for a few minutes, but certainly understand and acknowledge that many of you have other meetings to attend. So thank you again for your time, and I'll see you next month. Thank you.
Dr. Eads, this is Tracy McPherson, and while I've got the recording, I do have one more point. The criminal justice fellows. The programs, the jobs that people will be going into require certification. And that certification training that is offered through community colleges, either through BLET, detention officer, and others, the CJ fellows do have access to a fee waiver. And that information is in our community college fee waiver guidance. And so the scholarship does not have to be used for those certification classes, but they will be taking that, and their affiliation is the criminal justice program. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm going to stop the recording again. I'm happy to stay on the call and answer any questions that folks may have.